All right, I think we're live. I think this time I've got sound on the stream, unlike last time. So, for those of you watching this live, thank you. For those of you watching this later on, thank you for joining me. My name is Kirk. I run this channel called PhD20, formerly called PhD&D. It's about tabletop RPGs, mostly fantasy tabletop RPGs, specifically Dungeons and Dragons, but I haven't done any videos in a while other than an earlier one today is an update. And so I wanted to, I don't know, I had the urge to do a live stream to hang out, do a Q&A, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. And something that I haven't done, at least, yeah, I don't think I've done this where I have my entire RPG library within arm's reach right now. And so to fill the time between questions, that come up in the live chat, I thought I would dive through and show you the books that I have in my library, give you some ideas. You can see what I've got. I'll talk briefly about each one, how I've used it, what it's all about, because to be honest, a lot of these books I have not gone through all the way. I have not read these books start to finish. I've probably read very few of them start to finish. They're more resource books. And so yeah, we'll get started with that. I've got 2 TV trays, or stands, and I've got so many RPG books on top, and they're so heavy that I'm afraid, like, if you hear a crash, something probably broke, because I'm surprised they're actually holding up right now. But let's start with some of the boxed sets that I have specifically from 4th edition, and these are fantastic modules, fantastic resources for inspiration, as is all of this. So I'm going to try to avoid saying for every single book, this is a really good source of inspiration, because they all really are. But first things first. First box set that I've got here, as you can see, is Dungeons and Dragons Madness at Gardmore Abbey. This is a 4th edition box set that includes the Deck of Many Things. This is actually where it came up in 4th edition. It's got, well, just to give you a clue, it's a Paragon tier. No, it's Heroic tier adventure, for characters of 6th through 8th level. This is a pretty big adventure. This is not just a one-shot. I'm sure you could try to trick it into that, but there's a lot of content in this box. But more specifically, the exciting thing, and you can see that I have not actually run this adventure, because the Deck of Many Things, an actual deck. Sorry, it's a bit of a glare, which you can see the sun card. You can see kind of the backside. It says treasure card, but yeah, the Deck of Many Things is actually in this set, as well as classic 4th edition maps, tokens. I'm going to show you one quick sheet real quick here. Oh, these are actually some beautiful tiles. Look at that. You can see the dragon. Where is it? Right there. But look at these game tiles. Like, these were awesome. And clearly I have not used this set yet, but I'm thinking I need to run Madness at Gardmore Abbey sometime soon. But yeah, let me get this back here. That is one of the more exciting box sets that I have, at least adventure-wise. That just doesn't want to go back in. At least adventure-wise, it's fantastic. It's written, actually, if you've ever seen, I think it's Raging Swan Press. His name's Creighton Broadhurst, and he posts blogs, he posts articles about, a lot of them are like 20 things you find in a dungeon, 20 things you'd find on a dead wizard's body. He posts all these awesome articles, and the cool thing is he was actually one of the writers for Madness at Gardmore Abbey. That's where I first had heard of him before I'd actually seen his website. So that is a fantastic adventure, one that I honestly have not run, but I've pumped to actually run. See, when I bought that, I actually did use the Deck of Many Things, but I used it in a different campaign, totally separate from that story. So it'd be nice to actually use it in the context that they designed it for 4th edition. The next box set, which is a good one, is the Shadowfell. So the Shadowfell obviously is a very dark place, but let's see what the box set actually comes with. So you have more tokens, monster tokens, maps. More specifically, I want to show you. It comes with encounter book for characters of 7th through the 23rd level. So it comes with a book full of actual encounters. I have not actually ever looked at this one. What I've looked at is the much thicker book of the Shadowfell. This actually details the Shadowfell setting. It details some places within there, some rules, 4th edition rules to make it actually feel like the Shadowfell. It talks about factions, the City of Midnight, just an all-encompassing resource on the Shadowfell. Also comes with a deck of cards. Don't know what these are, but just so you guys can see them. D&D, and it says clumsy. Whenever you roll a natural 1 on an attack, skill check, or saving throw, you fall prone. Boon. There's boons. I need to learn more about this set, but I own it. And the reason I own it, when I bought it, I was not really interested in using the Shadowfell, but it was the only thing that I'd ever seen on sale at the gaming store that I shopped at the time. And it was on like steep clearance sale for like less than $10. And so I jumped all over that. And I'm glad I did, because now I am interested in the Shadowfell and learning about it. All right. Glad we're going through these box sets first, because they're a pain to put back together. This is the first ever tabletop RPG product that I ever purchased. This is the role-playing game starter set for 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons. To be completely honest, looking back, this is a very bare bones set. It did not teach me the rules at all, at least not well. I'd never played D&D, and I didn't even understand like the basic concepts or core mechanics of D&D, and so this did not really help. But it's got a fun little adventure, and the nostalgia factors there, because again, this was the very first thing that I ever owned for tabletop RPGs. Next up, continue with, now we get into the fancier box sets, the ones where you can actually, like, they have a lid on them instead of the top openers. So this is part of the, and so are the rest of these, I think, part of the 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons Essentials line, where they kind of condensed the rules down a bit. It was basically another marketing push, I think, to try and sell 4th edition. It came out with some really good stuff during this little run. I honestly don't know, even though I've played more 4th edition than anyone I know, I don't know like what they changed in Essentials, because we've never actually looked like at the rules here. I bought these for the adventures they came with. I think they just updated some math, honestly. But this is the Dungeon Masters kit. Awesome artwork on this one. And as you can see on the back, I don't know if you guys can see that actually, but it comes with the Reavers of Harkenwald 2-part adventure, something that I plan on running for an awesome group of guys online. We've tried to organize it twice, and it's just scheduling didn't work. So hopefully we get to run that in the future. But it comes with some really cool monster tokens, and it also came with the Dungeon Masters book, which we'll get to in a little bit, because it's actually not in here. It's in a different pile. But yeah, the adventures that came with these kits are fantastic. Reavers is one of the most fun adventures I've ever read. And I can't wait to take some people through it. The next box set is the red box from 4th edition. Yes, 4th edition had a red box called the starter set. So what I had before was the role-playing game starter set, which I think came out first, and then later on they released the red box. So this has the player's book, the dungeon master's book. It's got a map. It's got some cards. It's got tokens. The cards are actually like powers, I think. But yeah. Anyways, it's got a fun adventure inside, and these adventures all take place within the Nentir Vale setting, and they kind of tie together if you really read them. So this is one of the very first ones, and there's pieces in this adventure that you can actually find in other adventures later on. So it's really cool that they can string together if you would run every single one of them. But yeah, kind of neat. It's the only red box I have. I didn't ever have like the original red box or any of the others. In the last box set, the Monster Vault for 4th edition. This one, clearly it has a book called the Monster Vault, which again is in another pile, so we'll look over, but has a ton of tokens, monster tokens and maps. And it comes with an adventure for 4th level characters, which again is part of that Nentir Vale storyline, that is called Cairn of the Winter King. You can kind of see, they preview it on the back. Cairn of the Winter King I've only started reading, but like these others, it's really great. That's something that the 4th edition, say what you want about the system, the team of writers they were some of the best that they've ever had. Produced fantastic stuff. So, for instance, Rodney Thompson, who took part in last year's Brigade Con, helped with this one, along with much of this stuff that I have. Drink break. Anytime you guys or gals have questions, throw them in the chat. I've got the chat up. And this can be as much of a Q&A as it needs to. It doesn't even have to be related to these books. These books are just to give me something to present to you and to have some fun with in between questions. So again, feel free, pop something in the chat. All right, the next one we have is the Book of Vile Darkness. Again, 4th edition, as is most of my stuff, but not all of it. This is, the Book of Vile Darkness is an actual artifact in game, but this is actually a book that contains vile organizations. Here, I'll read the sections. So Evil Unearthed. So it talks about the Book of Vile Darkness. It talks about evil in the game, how to run evil campaigns, how to have vile encounters, villains, monsters, dark rewards, the Vile Tome. It's got player options in the player's book. This has some nasty diseases, I think, in it as well. Yeah, vile diseases, demon fever, death song, faceless hate. Just a lot of good, nasty stuff in this one. I've read through most of this book and pilfered some things from it. But yeah, this is a good example of one where it has 4th edition stat blocks for a lot of things, but at least half or more of this book could easily be ported to some other system, assuming it's fantasy, of course. The next is a little bit different, and I talked about it briefly in the video I put up earlier. How to draw fantasy art and RPG maps. Really good if you've never ever drawn a map. I've drawn a lot of maps, and this took my map making to the next level. Seriously. Just gives you some good tips and a couple of different styles. Different ways to draw things, ideas for things to put on maps, ideas on how to make coastlines pop out, multiple ways to draw trees, draw mountains, sample city icons you can see here. It's just, this book is done very well. it's got a lot of content, but it's very easy to read through if you wanted to read start to finish. And it even has, there's even some tips for if you're making digital maps. I do everything by hand, with the exception of using Incarnate once in a while. But yeah, this is a must have if you're a map maker. Must have. First question, Tales from Another World. What do you think the effect of an OGL for D&D 4E? It's now officially a legacy edition. Do you think third-party publishers in the community would create new content for it? For 4th edition, probably not. At least not in any noticeable amounts. I've seen very little third party content, whether it's officially published content or just somebody making something on a website. I've seen very little 4th edition stuff out there that's not officially licensed. So a lot of people just didn't, and I should say, in comparison to like 5th edition or 3rd or 3.5, whatever, in comparison to other editions, it was just people toyed with it a lot less. And it could be because there are very specific mechanics in it. I don't know. But yeah, I guess I don't know enough about the actual licensing with 4th edition to know like what people can and can't do with it. Crazy Sean 19 says, have you ever played any sci-fi tabletop RPGs? The answer to that is yes. And I'm not counting Star Wars, obviously, as a sci-fi. I have played some. I don't enjoy them as much, to be honest. And I don't know if it's just maybe the specific setting that it was in. Like the rules to me, I don't know. The rules aren't as important to me in trying new systems like that. I want to see like how they work with a setting. And so the very few times I've played sci-fi, it's just not as fulfilling to me as fantasy. And so yes, to answer your question, yes, but it's not one of my favorites and not one that I put any of my own time towards anymore. Haha, this also made its way into the video earlier today. My latest purchase, 13th Age. I've seen this, considered it a few times. Of course, when I wanted it, my gaming store didn't have it anymore, so I had to get it on Amazon. Amazon jacked the price up to like $45. So I signed up for a website. It's called Camel. And it's basically just an Amazon price tracker. It shows you what the price has been like over the past few months, like a graph, and it alerts you when the item you want drops beneath a certain price. So I said, let me know when it's under $40 so I can think about it. And the first time it dropped all the way down to like 28. So just goes to show you, Amazon fluctuates. It's like a $15 swing more. It's like a $17 swing for an RPG book. And 13th Age, one that doesn't sell a lot anymore. But for whatever reason, they jacked that price all the way up. So I waited it out, got it cheaper. Definitely worth it. The system actually looks pretty fun. The mechanics, the rules. But again, like I said, with very limited time that I have to actually game, I'll probably just use this for inspiration. But it's a very, very well laid out book. Like there's a map of this world called, I think it's called the Dragon Empire. And then they have these things called icons, which are basically like NPCs, but taken to another level. So you've got like the Archmage, the Crusader, the Dwarf King, and I think there's like 12 or 14 or something of these icons. And they have allies, enemies, histories, how adventurers would interact, common knowledge about this icon. And the icons are like this big thing in the world. And that's just something really cool you could do with any game. And they just stress them to the point where like they're super valuable NPCs, which is cool. Some other neat rules that I'll probably port over and try in D&D, but overall, just beautiful artwork, very well laid out, and honestly, probably a really fun system in itself. But yes, worth every penny. And I've only read like a quarter of it. All right, we are almost a quarter of the way through the stacks of books. So we'll keep moving with these. If you don't have yourself a drink, stop watching and go get one, whatever it is. Creative people have drinks. It's going to be coffee, beer, liquor, tea, water, whatever it is, but you have to have one. All right, now we're getting into some of the core 4th edition stuff. Player's Handbook 3 for 4th edition. Psionic, Divine, and Primal Heroes. Give you a short look at what we have. Githzerai, Minotaur, Shardmind, and Wilden, or the races added. Ardent, Battlemind, Monk, Scion, Rune Priest, Seeker, and Hybrid classes. That's what was introduced in the Player's Handbook 3 for 4th edition. Didn't use this book a lot just because it honestly, in 4th edition, we had the online character builder, which had everything in it. And so getting these books, I got a lot of these books from a very loyal fan, and I can't thank him enough. Because just, like I said, we didn't use this so much to make characters, but actually looking in it. Oh, and look at this, like this artwork, the Minotaur. Like, just awesome. Awesome stuff. And good to have now if I ever want to play 4th edition, because guess what? They shut down the online tools or access to them if you weren't already paying. And I wasn't at the time. Move right along to the Player's Handbook 2. And I'll give you a quick overview of what they added in this. I will say we did use this because this is one that we had before the online character builder. And actually, one of the first 3 characters in the first campaign I ever ran was a race out of this. So in 4th edition, the Player's Handbook 2 added the following races: Deva, Gnome, Goliath, Half-Orc, and Shifter. We had a Deva as one of the first characters. He was very cool. Classes that were added: the Avenger, Barbarian, Bard, Druid, Invoker, one of my favorite classes, Shaman, Sorcerer, Warden, and then some additional epic destinies and things. The Deva was an Avenger. That was cool. It's interesting that 5th edition has 1, 2, 3, 4 of these classes in the Player's Handbook already. The Sorcerer, Barbarian, Bard, and Druid. So they weren't added until Player's Handbook 2 for 4th edition. Question from Crazy Sean. I created a sci-fi galaxy, but I'm having trouble making a galactic map. Ooh. Any tips or suggestions? Number 1, Google. Look at what's out there. While I've made a ton of maps, I've never made a galactic map. And so I'm sure that's very different. So I'd look at maybe look at some different styles of Star Wars maps, just because they've got the galaxy mapped out. Maybe look at some actual NASA maps. And probably, they're probably not as interesting, but just to get a little bit of inspiration or some ideas for how they lay them out. Once you have that and have like how you want it laid out, a lot of the same techniques are still going to apply. But obviously you're not going to be doing mountains and coastlines, things like that. So maybe you want to add on trade routes, flight paths, things like that. It's very tough because a galactic map, it's so much more three-dimensional. You know what I mean? Like the surface of a world, like a fantasy world, is flat, even if it's round. The surface is flat, and that's how you're drawing a map. Whereas a galaxy, it's space. It's not actually flat, so it's tough. But like I said, maybe look some up and see which ones stand out to you, and then ask yourself, why do I like these ones? What about these? And then take that and make yours. Next up, the plane above. Secrets of the Astral Sea. Again, use this one quite heavily because by the time I got this, the characters were getting into the epic tier of 4th edition, and this laid out some really cool areas, and actually it was probably the most detail on some of these areas that I had seen to date. So if you want to know anything about the Astral Sea, the plane above, even in 5th edition, since there's really not much out there, I mean, this is it. Go grab this. Again, another well-made one. I wish they had content like this for 5th edition, because while a lot of this could be ported over, there is some edition-specific stuff in here, like information on, or a stat block for an Astral Clipper, which is a vehicle, or an Astral... Astral Clipper. There's a couple others. And then, of course, you have the plane above. So what comes next? The plane below. Secrets of the Elemental Chaos. My group only went there one time. Smart group, right? So I have not used this as much. I have not read as much of this, but I really want to, because there's some crazy stuff down there. Crazy lore. And look at this. Like, a lot of this stuff is not, you don't see a lot of stat blocks. Pictures, text. Look at that awesome picture. Tons of text. There's some encounters, sample of encounters, but oh man, some really good stuff in this book. And then this one, so we had the plane above, the plane below, and then we have the manual of the planes. So this has a little bit more detail, expands on a few things, but then there's some other areas where those first two books go further into detail. So I don't know why they made all three. From what I've read, this one just kind of ties everything together. So it's so tough to say. Like, I'm not going to say this is unnecessary, because sometimes this is the best out of the three. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about this one, just because, again, didn't use it as much. What's 4th edition? Is that some weird variant of 3.5? Not quite. No, 4th edition, if you've not seen like some videos where I talked about it a lot on my channel, it's what I played forever. But I've played it from level 1 through 29. And I love 4th edition. There's a lot of people that hate it. I love 5th edition. I love them both. 5th edition is something new, so it's more attractive at this point. But I'll always love 4th edition, and mostly because of all the content that it had. And I thought it was great stuff. So moving along, we have a lot more to get through. Two of my favorite books, and two books that I'm using extensively in 5th edition. There's a little bit of work that I have to do to use them, but The Adventurer's Vault. This is book number 2. Arms and equipment for all character classes. So this is just chock full of magic items. Just so many. Talks about them, has the actual stat blocks for them. It's just a book full of magic items. So this is really inspiring when I'm creating magic items for 5th edition. Is I use stuff out of here and say, how can I port that over and make it work? Question from Tales from Another World. Which non-game book have you found to be an essential reference for your gaming? I'm going to ask you to clarify. Do you mean something not pushed out by a tabletop RPG company, or do you mean one that's not full of like rules specifically? Yeah, let me know what you mean there, and then I'll try to answer that. The Adventurers Vault 1. So this one has arms and equipment for all classes, but it starts off with the regular equipment section detailing masterwork armor, additional weapons, mounts, vehicles, and introduces alchemy. Then you have the actual rest of the book, which is just tons of magic items. Again, sample page, those are all magic items. And here's the actual charts that show all the magic items. But again, like so much inspiration here. Next up, this is a really good one because I like the setting that 4th edition had, which is called the Nentir Vale. And this is probably the most comprehensive resource for the Nentir Vale, if you had to pick one. And it's called Monster Vault: Threats to the Nentir Vale. It has all of these, factions and monsters specific to the Vale, and it details, their history and their culture and how they relate to the actual Nentir Vale. And at the beginning, it actually breaks down the actual setting. So, for instance, you have the Dark Drake of the Moon Hills as one of them. You have the Daggerberg Goblins. You have, I'm trying to see, there's one of my favorite ones in here, the Black Fang Gnolls. Here it is. In Reavers of Harkenwald, there is a faction, an evil faction called the Iron Circle. And in this book, you have this whole layout of the Iron Circle. Sorry, hope you guys can see that. But it's got stat blocks, it's got the pictures, it talks about the lieutenants in the Iron Circle, different levels of lore for the Iron Circle, more stat blocks for creatures that would be within the circle. So yeah, this just probably your best book if you're looking for Nentir Vale setting information. I'll start leaving the books up here. This next set easily got the most use out of everything that I used in 4th edition. And rightfully so, because it's the core books. The core set we bought, like I said, that beginner set didn't really teach us much, so we went out and bought this. You've got the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual. Yeah, we used the hell out of these things. They saw so much use. A lot of memories in this stack right here. Examples from Tales from Another World will be the Silmarillion, World of Kong. Okay, so books that aren't made specific to gaming. Okay, let me think about that while we go over some more books, and I'll see if I can get you a good answer. Crucial book for world builders. So most recently, one of the better books is Be a Better Campaign Master. Now, have that in your collection, but after that, make sure you get a hold of the Kobold Guide to World Building. This is a little bit different. Be a Better Campaign Master is better to ease you into it. It's honestly, Be a Better Campaign Master is thorough to the point where it can take somebody who's never created a setting and have you create an awesome one. What this book does is this is basically a series of essays. This is not like a how-to step-by-step. It's a series of essays on world building from some game designers, some authors. For instance, one of the articles is called Here Be Dragons, World Building Advice from a Professional Mapper. Gaming after a civilization has fallen, bringing history to life, just good articles, but probably the next step after Be a Better Campaign Master. Because if you dove right into this doesn't really help you make a world like that other one I referenced. But this will help you develop your skills once you've started making worlds. You can get just the digital copy of this as well. I got both because I like physical books when I can. And to mention, for those watching the stream, this is my physical library. My Google Drive has, at this point, a couple hundred different books and resources. Some are duplicates of what you see here, but not very many. And so I will not be showing those off in this little look because it's tougher with that. You got to do a screen share, and then I'm showing you a product that you have to buy to actually get access to. So I don't know, maybe I'll show you those someday, but today is all about the physical books. All right, we got a couple more comments here. Let's see who's here. When world building for the in-game cultures, how do you blend them together? For example, if you wanted to combine two real-world cultures into one in-game culture. Okay, that's a good one because I do that a lot. You have to ask yourself, so let's take the Spartans, for instance, and let's take like feudal Japan, because I hear those two a lot. What specifically? Because if you're going to port over, and I use that word a lot, that just means pull something from over here and put it here. If you're going to port over feudal Japan and put it in your world, what specifically about that culture do you want? Because you don't want to take it, you don't want to take the entire thing and bring it. So think about like the 2 or 3 really cool things that you like about it, and do the same for the Spartans. Don't just bring over and create a Spartan civilization. You can do that too, but that's not what the question was. So maybe with the Spartans, it's that they take the young at an early age and train them. Okay, so take that and then take what you like from feudal Japan and start right there. So remember, just grab a couple key things. You basically want to take one thing and just blow it out of proportion rather than try to recreate this entire culture. Take those sparks of inspiration and let yourself create the new culture out of it. Hope that helped. MTD, welcome, man. I have never built my own world for players to run around in. That surprises me, honestly, man. You would build an amazing one, I have no doubt. So, again, for those of you just joining, we're going through my RPG library. I've already gone through a lot. It's a lot of 4th edition stuff, but as you can see by this next one, it's definitely not all 4th edition stuff. So if you have questions, pop them in the chat. Feel free to just keep chatting away there, and I will continue with the books. And Tales from Another World, I have not forgotten your question. I'm still just trying to come up with the best answer. So I bought this maybe about 2 years ago now. AD&D 2nd edition Dungeon Master's Guide. They re-released these. This is the re-released copy, so it's very nice. But I was not alive during the very beginnings of D&D. I was born actually very late in the game. And so I love these old magazines or these original rule books. I bought the digital set of like the very first version of D&D. There's so much inspiration in there to me. You can almost just feel what D&D was like. I mean, look at like that artwork, for instance. Just awesome. But I've used this book a little bit. Haven't read it start to finish. But I did use like class requirements, or race class requirements in one of my settings. Not something I would recommend you do, but something I did want to toy around with at the time. But yeah, the older stuff, I love it. Love the adventures. Love the magazines. I think Dragon magazines, right? I've got a bunch of those too, but again, they're not here with the book collection. MTD has the Seed of a World. Yeah, man, start with Be a Better Campaign Master for sure. I know you've probably read it or most of it, and you can tell, like, I've read a lot of world building books, a lot. And I don't know. I'm going to show you one next that I also recommend. But if you had to go with one, it's Be a Better Campaign Master, because it's the only one that actually, like, you can sit down with just that book and create a setting, like, and stay on track. That's the thing. A lot of these other ones just talk a lot. They talk to you about world building. They talk about, think about this, think about this. The Be a Better Campaign Master, I feel like you actually build right alongside of it. And it works so well for that. So what book am I referring to? This is the best, the best non-D&D book that I have in my collection. You know that I'm not a Pathfinder advocate. I have nothing against it, just didn't really play it. I played it a few times. It was meh. But they have one of the best books ever. The Pathfinder Game Mastery Guide is seriously one of the best books. There's not a lot in here that's just specific to Pathfinder. And about half of what is can easily be ported to D&D or some other fantasy system. But the world building section in here, again, phenomenal. Talks about different types of cultures. Talks about how to actually start thinking about a world, like the things to consider, things that you may not think of if you've never really done world building before. But every single time I sit down to create a setting, and I've created a lot of them, this book is always right by my side. It's just so good. And I don't play Pathfinder, so that hopefully that tells you just how highly I think of this book. Next up, let's go with these. So earlier I talked about the box sets from 4th edition, and I talked about how they have D&D Essentials. These two books are from two of the boxes. They are just currently sitting out. The Dungeon Master's book from the Dungeon Master's Kit. Just a smaller version of the Dungeon Master's Guide for 4th edition, but so much friendlier to travel with. I mean, come on, this compared to like a full-size hardback book, this is so much easier to toss in your bag and go to game night with. But yeah, again, just a brief look at the rules and the Nentir Vale. There's a little peek at that in here. And the other one of the best ones, if you're running 4th edition, you have to buy this, is the Monster Vault. Again, it came in the Monster Vault box set, but here's a ton of monsters. It's got their picture using the token that it actually came with the set. So you have the token for all these. But this honestly has more lore in it than the actual monster manual, like 4th edition monster manual. Granted, it doesn't have quite as many monsters, I don't think, but it's got all the main ones you need. I mean, you need a skeleton, it's in here. You need a zombie, it's in here. You need some dragons, they're in here. So this is just one of those things. If you're going to run 4th edition, you got to have it. If you're not running 4th edition, you still could probably use it for the lore. If you're like me, I love monster lore, so highly recommend. Let's see. MTD, you have the Game Mastery Guide. Haven't looked at it since I first started playing and was weighing the benefits. I would say read the beginning of the Game Mastery Guide. You're one of the best DMs I've seen, to be honest, just like the enthusiasm and the energy you put into it. But the beginning talks about how that's important and some things you can do as a DM. But then if I were you, I'd skip straight to the world building section and read that next, because that's what really sold me. But again, the adventure building section, all of it is great. But yeah, definitely open it. So considering you have a rich library, did you ever have different systems play in the same world? I mean, the story can be told with different systems, right? You're right. I'm not the best person to ask that to, since I'm very, very much a one system person. I have nothing against other ones, but I usually am playing like one system at a time, and I'm not trying a lot of systems just because, like, I released a video earlier today where I talked about I don't have a lot of time right now to game, which sucks. And so the time that I do have, I want to play something where I know I like it, which right now is 5th edition, kind of some homebrew stuff, using other systems, but the core of it is 5th edition. So any opportunity I get right now, that's what I play. But yes, for anyone else, like if you have time to play other systems, I think it'd be cool to see how 2 different systems played in the same world. That's not something I've ever done. Okay, technically that's a lie. So my setting called Air started as 5th edition started playtesting. And so we played the first like 5 levels as characters built from the D&D Next playtest. And then once we got to level 5, like the playtests were slowing down, not very much content released. So we actually switched to 4th edition. So there were both D&D, but they were very different systems. And after about 1 session, nobody remembered or recognized any difference, to be honest. Might be different though with something like Dungeon Crawl Classics versus D&D. So here's a question. If you had to pick a world from a non-gaming book to use as a campaign setting, what would you pick and why? Great freaking question. So for me, I think this is what you're getting at. I know there was a tabletop book on it at one time, but that's not where it started. I would pick Azeroth from Warcraft. There's just something about that setting, the high fantasy, but oh man, the lore in Azeroth is the big thing. I have a lot of books. They're not over here because they're not directly gaming related, but like the visual guide to World of Warcraft. I'm about to pick up the new one. It's called like World of Warcraft, or maybe it's just called Warcraft Chronicle. I just eat up the lore for all that Warcraft stuff. And I don't really play like World of Warcraft. I never played the originals. I played in my life maybe a total of 6 months of World of Warcraft, and not even like solid months. Like I've only ever had a subscription for like 6 months. And I currently don't, but geez, I love that setting. So that's my answer. But yeah, a lot of good ones to pick. So we'll keep on. So up next, these are in my collection, but they're just maps. So I have the Shattered Keeps map set. I don't know how many are in here, like 3, I think, double-sided, so 6 maps. But yeah, they're battle maps for your campaign. I love miniatures. I love maps. I don't use them all the time, but if you like them, these are really cheap sets. So Shattered Keeps, Haunted Temples, same thing. I've used this one probably more than any other. The 2 solid map sets. And, oh, this is an adventure. Have never opened it. So I don't know what it's about, but I believe it's Nentir Vale. And I just opened it. The Orcs of Stonefang Pass. This is a level 5 adventure. It's got Matthew Cernett, who I've seen him on a lot of stuff for 4th edition. Ooh, here's some big ones. I'm missing one of them. I'm missing 2. I don't know where those are, but I know I have them. Anyways, Pyramid of Shadows, a heroic tier adventure for characters level 7 through 10. Again, within the Nentir Vale setting. Haven't read much of this yet, though, to be honest. But how sweet is that picture? This is what I want. I want more stuff like this in 5th edition. I know they're being smarter and not just getting this overflow of content, but to be honest, damn it, I love having a collection of books. Prince of Undeath. We've actually run a good deal of this in the 4th edition campaign, and they're probably right at the very end of this. But that's a group that only gets to play about once to twice a year, unfortunately. But, oh yeah, this is a big one. Fight with Orcus is coming next. All right. So these next 2 books were not mine, but a friend, when we were learning 4th edition, brought them over, and we used them to kind of help figure things out, as well as inspiration. This is the core rulebook, Player's Handbook, for 3.5. So I'm sure many of you recognize this. This was a huge system. I never got to play it. But yeah, again, there's a lot of cool things in here. And then a little bit more useful, for me anyways, the Magic Item Compendium. Similar to the Adventurer's Vault, I can open this, find awesome magic items, and then remake them for 5th edition. And some old school graph paper fell out the bottom. Next up, we move into, well, before I do that, check the chat, get a drink. Have you ever played yourself in a system? No, I play myself every day. I want to play a guy with a sword when I play a system. Next up, Monster Manual 3. I don't remember if they redid the math between the 1st and 2nd Monster Manual or between the 2nd and 3rd, but this is just expanding on the set of monsters in 4th edition. I use this almost every time I prepped. Like I said, we had the online character builder, and so we had these online tools, but I like to physically open the books when I was prepping just to find like the monsters that I would need for that specific session. Same thing goes for the Monster Manual 2. Pretty much the same type of thing as 3. Next up, this is a book, probably one of the more underappreciated 4th edition books. But James Wyatt, Bill Slavacek, I think is how you say it, and Robin Laws, who you've probably seen elsewhere, created the Dungeon Master's Guide 2. This has some really great stuff. It's got sections on cooperative world building, cooperative story arcs, doing kind of like flashbacks with players, really digging into like what your players want. Like there's a survey in here, I think, to like ask players what they want. But then it just expands and adds some more rules to 4th edition after that. But some really good stuff, like as far as role playing. It's kind of one of those where I bought it and was really surprised at how good it was. So yeah, solid one. Swamper, my fellow and one of the only fellow 4th edition lovers. 3rd had the most balanced rules. That's what I thought. I wasn't sure if they redid all the math for the 2nd one, but I didn't think so. Oh, some good ones coming next. So I ran this start to finish. It was part of our campaign, actually. It worked its way into our world. But the 4th edition Tomb of Horrors, and I just caused flashback nightmares for my players. While I've never read the original or run it, this was great. And again, that's without comparing it to the original. One of my players had done the original years back. And there's a point in this one where he said it was the same exact part of the same exact dungeon. And so he was very on edge because he knew there were like traps and things. And a spoiler alert for this one, small spoiler, that dungeon was like completely empty in this part. Like there was nothing. So we spent an hour for them to basically tiptoe their way through this dungeon where he knew like how dangerous it could be. And the system basically tricked him. There was nothing in there. And as soon as he got out, then shit hit the fan. But the story in here was great. There are very few modules where I have read them in such detail and so many times as 4th edition Tomb of Horrors. And the party had so much fun with this. They threw a party in the middle of a session when they finally beat the big bad guy. They broke out like shots, alcohol, beer, turned on music. They were dancing. Like a party was thrown because this ended. So yeah, it stressed him out a bit, but super, super fun. All right. Next one. The Underdark. This is something 4th edition leaned heavily on for a good part of its life. It did a lot of Underdark stuff, which at the time disappointed me because I didn't appreciate the Underdark for what it is. And now I see why they used it so much and why there was a big 5th edition adventure that used the Underdark. It's the perfect setting for D&D, for like classic D&D style games. The Underdark is great. But I bought this when my party first went into the Underdark, and it was a great introduction for me because at the time I was still pretty new DM and hadn't really known much about the Underdark. I'd read some of the Drist books. I've read like 6 of them, I think. But I still didn't feel like I really knew how to run it in a game until I got this. A lot of details, a lot about the setting, and one of my favorite books that I have. All right, I'm gonna take a quick 30-second break, and I will be right back, everyone. All right, everyone, I'm back. Thanks for hanging tight. So, next up is a really fun one. And it is the Dungeon Survival Handbook. It's called Into the Unknown. This is a fourth edition book, which basically talks about some dungeons. It talks about famous dungeons. It talks about some races you would find there, or dungeon delvers, it calls them. But also gives you basically the top 5 rules for dungeon delving. This is just a very different book. Expert delving tactics. It's a really cool book geared towards players. Like, hey, players, read this. Do these things when you're going through a dungeon and you'll survive. And so that was just really, really cool. Here we go. The Forgotten Realms campaign guide. There was a point at which I was going to run some stuff in the Forgotten Realms. To be honest, I got a little overwhelmed just because of how detailed the realms is. I still am, sort of, just because I'm the type of person who likes to know as much as possible when running. So I'd have to start very small. But I read quite a bit of this book. I learned a lot about the Forgotten Realms because I'd never really known much. And yeah, it's a pretty good book, but I'm going to show you one in a little bit. Most of you know what it is. That's a lot better. Any tips on drawing or creating flags? Now, is this about flags on a map? If so, I don't really put a lot of them on a map. But the book I talked about, the How to Draw tabletop, whatever, rewind, you'll see it. That one should explain how to draw some more of those icons and things like that. Tabletop Terrors, Tim, James, probably Tim, welcome. Swamper in the Forgotten Realms book stole most of Pantheon for my world. Also their calendar. Calendar's great. I use for my Pantheon the Dawn War deities, which is similar to Forgotten Realms. But the Dawn War deities for me are the easiest to use and the most relatable, for my players. Anyways. Continuing on. This beast. Dungeon Crawl Classics. Oh, this is a big book. This book, I use some of the tables. I use the Fumbles table. I was inspired by this book to use some luck mechanic. I use the Mercurial Magic from this book. Basically the idea that in one of my settings, I should say, basically I use the idea that magic is extremely powerful and extremely dangerous. And the more you use it, the more power you might gain, but it really tears down your body. It almost like turns you into a monster slowly. And so there's just some really cool things from this system that I've brought over and tried. And you got to be careful because you can get in over your head trying to like recreate the game. But this is a fun one to take a look at if you get the chance. Next up is the best Forgotten Realms book that I've ever seen. And it is, I have a whole video on it. Elminster's Guide to the Forgotten Realms. This is like one of the only books from 4th edition, from that era, I should say, because it's not specific, from that era to like win an award. This book goes into so much detail on day-to-day things in the Forgotten Realms. So like day jobs for adventurers is something in here. A whole section on money, a whole section on holidays, realm speak, like slang basically for the Forgotten Realms. It's just written so well and so fun to read, but at the same time you realize like, holy cow, like this is a great way to talk about a setting into like detail and world build. And so I've done a lot to make my settings close to kind of the format that this book is in. I can't recommend this book enough. So if you want anything Forgotten Realms, or if you just want a cool world building resource, boom, get this book. Plus it's got a really sweet wizard on the back. And it's just got like different feel to it. I don't know. I'm all over this book, as you can tell. This book, slightly disappointed that I bought it. But at the same time, I'll be honest, I have not read it enough to be disappointed. Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. I think it was not what I was expecting. That was the biggest thing, biggest letdown for me. In the fact that it was, I don't remember if it was 30 or 40. Sometimes the store I go to, it's actually like $10 cheaper than the retail price. But anyways, it was just sort of okay. Definitely not a bad book. There's a lot in here. But it was one of those where you're like, all right, that was just sort of all right. Probably would have rather had something awesome, but yeah, I need to do some more digging with this book though. So the next book I found at a Hastings bookstore, and I didn't know it existed. Never seen it anywhere else. But it is a 4th edition preview book. So this came out like before 4th edition came out. And it's called Wizards Presents Worlds and Monsters. And you go into it. Oh, geez, there's like coupons in there from years ago. And there's, for instance, at the end, I just saw it. Staff thoughts on 4th edition. So like the staff of 4th edition actually goes through and talks about what they think. So like James Wyatt's got one. I'm sure Chris Perkins is in here somewhere. Bruce Cordell. Yeah, there's a whole section called What Can You Tell Me About 4E by Chris Perkins. But they talk about like the settings of D&D. They talk about the world, living in the light, the whole points of light thing, the fallen empires, Baal Tarath, Arcosia. Yeah, geez. I mean, it's a really cool book full of like world building things. I mean, it talks about monsters. It's just so like, this was a super find at the store because you don't see these anywhere. Again, I don't even know what this is other than it's really cool. And it was only like, yeah, it was $3.99 when I bought it. So really cool look at like what they thought 4th edition was going to become. especially looking back and knowing like what it became. Like I played the whole system and then discovered this preview book. So that was just really cool. What we got in the chat? So I bought Sword Coast and regret it. The first time I haven't liked an RPG book that I bought. I would agree. I would have rather spent $15 on it. I probably wouldn't have been nearly as disappointed. But yeah, it's just bleh. And then the 3 classics for 5th edition to wrap it up. The core rule books for D&D 5e. Don't have to say much about these. Obviously, I love them. I need to create a character tomorrow for an upcoming campaign. But that is my RPG specific collection. I do have a lot of books that I use with RPGs for inspiration, which I still need to answer that question from earlier. But these are the actual RPG books I have. I have a bunch of old Dragon magazines. I have 2 gaming stores in town. One is a hobby town. And so that's actually where the product is cheaper for some reason, like $10 below retail, like I said. But then I also have a store called Gauntlet Games, which is way more old school. Awesome store. But like it actually smells old school, like the magazine smell. And they sell those old Dragon magazines. I don't know where he gets them in, but he's always got more of them every time. And love looking through those. So let's see. If you could change one thing about Sword Coast Adventures Guide, what would you change? So the thing with this book that upset me at first is it had quite a bit of, it had like Races of the Realms, gave a little bit more details on like classes, added some backgrounds, which was cool, had some interesting sidebars. But the biggest thing that I thought this was going to be was, maybe I disappointed myself. I thought it was going to be a drilled down version of this, like something of this quality on the Sword Coast region, like really diving into the Sword Coast region. And while there's some there, there's not nearly what I expected. I pretty much feel like I paid $30 or $40, whatever, for a few extra game options, which, if you know me, like that's not what I'm after. I'm after the inspiration, the settings, the world building stuff. And this just didn't deliver on that front. So I would, if I could change anything, I would add way more detail and make it something like this. MTD agrees. Yeah, way light on the lore. And again, for me, I probably set my expectations too high. Like I didn't research it before it came out. I just had heard what was coming out, and I was like, oh man, I'll bet that's just chock full of lore. And maybe that's just never what they intended. So I set myself up for disappointment. But so I had a question earlier. Let me find it so I can actually read it out. Which non-game book have you found to be an essential reference for your gaming? So thinking about this, the book that I have that I reference the most for world building, that's not what we talked about, is the World of Warcraft visual guide, or I think it's called a visual guide to a World of Warcraft. And it's got the lore, which is some of my favorite lore, laid out. But the way they lay it out, the design of that book, the stuff they talk about, keeps me on track in my world building. it's hard to explain, but the way they do the histories in there, the way they spotlight. I'm back. I pushed a button on my keyboard and everything shut down. I don't even know what I pushed. So I'm sorry about that. As I was saying, the way that they lay out the lore, the way that they talk about the histories, and then they spotlight certain NPCs from history, that's the stuff that I really, really love. By the way, I think chat is a few seconds behind. So if you can see me, if I came back after I disappeared, please let me know. Okay. Whew. All right. So yeah, I would say that is probably the one that I reference the most. Give me 1 second and I can glance at my bookshelf to see if there's something else. No, that would definitely be the most. I have read the entire Song of Ice and Fire series up to now, and subconsciously, I probably reference that a lot. Same with like the Drist books, any fantasy books really. I'm still reading just a monster Brandon Sanderson book right now, and I find myself referencing that a lot because he is a fantastic author and world builder. So, yeah, Silmarillion's a little too much for me. Um, but I'm also someone who hasn't read as much Tolkien as other people probably. So I need to read more of that because I do enjoy his stuff. So, Tabletop Terrors, I am reading The Way of Kings. So I have The Way of Kings and whatever the second one's called, Radiant something. Um, and I've been reading Way of Kings for over a year. Like, but I'll be honest, there have been like 6 months at a time where I haven't read it. I'm just a slow reader, not slow reader. I just don't read much when I'm reading, I should say. Um, and Way of Kings is like 1,200 pages, and Radiance, whatever the second one is even bigger. It's fantastic. As I'm sure you're reading Elantris, I'm sure that's also fantastic. He's a great writer. He really is. And I watch his lectures online. You can look up Brandon Sanderson lectures on YouTube, and he gives the best like fantasy, sci-fi writing lectures and world building lectures. They're just great. And so, yeah, but it's just taken me way too long to get through that book. I'm only on page like 800 right now, which should feel like an accomplishment with any book. But then you see you have 400 pages left and you're just disappointed in yourself. But yeah, I need to switch to audiobooks. I'm such a fan of having like physical books, but I would get way more done with audiobooks. So maybe I'll switch to those to catch up. But yeah, that is the PhD 20 library of gaming, gaming specific at least. I also have the 5th edition starter set. I just didn't bring it over. It wasn't very impressive, honestly, other than the adventure. So yeah, hope you guys had fun taking a look at that. I had fun showing it off. Now I get to pick it all up and put it away. Yay. And so yeah, we'll do another one of these soon. If you have questions, questions I missed or didn't get to, feel free to toss them at me on Twitter or on Facebook, and I'll get to them. Otherwise, thanks for joining me. Have a wonderful night and a wonderful rest of your weekend, everyone. Cheers.